why should I be ashamed? I look forward to these Tuesday nights to have this convo with you. Tonight is a very, very special night. I'm going to be talking and sharing about my mother. Would you do me one great favor that I ask you every week? Would you like and share? Like and share. Reach out to some of your friends, because all of us may have someone that needs to hear my story. I would be remiss tonight if I didn't ask you to pray for one of my loved ones, Denise Bronson. She lost her grandson on last evening, and the family is in great pain, great hurt. So I'm asking you to pray for the Bronson family and the Thomas family, and this grandmother is hurting. I believe the grandson was 19 and he was shot and killed in Chicago. And 8 years ago, her own son was shot and killed. And this was her only grandson. And so, Denise, we are praying for you. She's my love cousin. We had great fun when we were kids. A beautiful woman. And so I spoke with Thurman on today. And these are the kids I grew up with. We love each other. And I'm just soliciting your prayers tonight as we move forward tonight. God bless you. So, how are you doing tonight? I really wanted to talk a little bit about Gwendolyn Grace Morgan, my first love, my mother. I remember my mother loving me. I've always felt special. I always felt wonderful concerning her. Growing up as a child, even though we had some rough times, some tragic times, and I'm going to read you some of the things in my story about her. My mother was a woman of just smarts. She was sharp, and I remember my grandmother's sister's children. They were sharp girls and sharp women, beautiful homes in Detroit, Michigan. And she was a true Detroitan, and she just loved life and loved laughter. I don't remember her really having any enemies. And she would always just make people laugh. And I think a lot of times she gave out what she wanted in return. She wanted unconditional love. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, is my unconditional love towards my mother. And unconditional love is affection without any limitations or any conditions. Oftentimes, I was sharing with the producer tonight that oftentimes, okay, y'all playing with my voice now. Oftentimes, Jesus, I lost my thought. Oftentimes, people read my story and then they ask me, as they're reading, they'll come back and say, I became very, very angry with your mother. I didn't really write this story to hurt anybody, to cast down anybody. I just shared my experience. This is my true experience, my truth. And you know, the half has not been told. I remember writing this story, and you got to remember, I think I wrote it some years ago, and I was still in a lot of pain. Everything was very fresh to me. And I wrote this to release pain, but also to help somebody else to not have shame or frustration while telling their stories. And it did that, because many people has opened their hearts and opened up and shared their stories and moved on and grew past and got healing from this situation. But when they read my story, they'll come back and say, your mother was something else. But I want to share with you, even my mother was a victim of abuse also. Tragic as it were, watching her in this relationship with this man It was very, very, very negative, very abused. But I got to experience her when we would go to Detroit and live, and I got to experience the joys of life with my mother. I got to experience things like going to the store buying brand new dresses, and that was normal. I got to experience my uncle coming to take me to church in beautiful cars, and just being there for me and being positive and loving on us and saying positive things to us. And when we were in Detroit, we had love cousins there. We didn't fight. We didn't do cigarettes or drugs. We were around none of that. And so it was a more peaceful experience, and I got to see her in a more positive way. And I remember those things, and I remember her being a very nurturing woman. My mother was the type of woman that can just do everything. I remember I had a knit needle, and I bought some yarn. And she took the yarn and she rolled it all up in a circle, and then she sat there and she knitted a set of booties in one setting. We were at Nana's house that evening, and she wasn't in a drinking mood that night. And I remember sitting there on the couch watching her, and I remember when she rolled the yarn around her fingers and slit the knot there and cut it, and it became a pom-pom, and I just thought it was so amazing. She would do all of our hair. She would do the girls' hair in the family, especially like at holidays, at Easter. And I thought I was little Shirley Denise Temple. And she would make your hair so beautiful, and those are the type of things that she brought into this family. And she was always making everybody laugh. She loved everybody. She didn't treat nobody different. She didn't have colorism. It wasn't nothing about your hair. She treated us all the same. But I've always felt special love from my mother. I always felt an unconditional love. My mother would have all these sayings. I mean, she would say things like, you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. And then you would ask her, could you please explain it? And, she would tell us that you can only bring a person so far, and then they have to do the work themselves. So I learned that from her. She had great mother wit. My mother would, you hear a lot of people that was poor when she moved to Chicago. She didn't have a washer and dryer. I remember her warming our pajamas on the stove, and after we got our bath, she would rub Vicks sap on our chest, and then put the warm pajamas on, and then hug us and tell us a story and tickle us. And those are the great times of childhood. You didn't even know that you were poor because you was so rich with love and with her nurturing. And she would cook oatmeal, which was not my favorite. She would cook oatmeal and toast in the mornings and get us ready for school, and we would sit around the table as if we had everything, and we'd eat our toast, and there we go off to school. And I remember this instinctively. When my mother would tie my scarf around my neck, and I could just smell her hands, I remember those things about my mother. She is, and always has been, a special, special person to me. And I found myself through the years trying to be like her, some good habits and some bad habits. So tonight I just want I know that if you have experienced sexual abuse at the hands of telling your mother, grandmother, or whoever, but I'm really trying to concentrate on the female point of view, then sometimes you may feel, kind of double-minded. You have a sense of anger towards them, and then you have a sense of love towards them. It's almost like a love of honor or respect, like I have to love her, or I'm supposed to love her. Everybody say you're supposed to love your mother. That's your first love. She could have gave you away, or she could have, and we experience a lot of abandonment at the hands of my mother. But I think what happened there, sometimes some of the love experience were so strong, maybe it overshadowed, or maybe that caused me to be healed. I'm not sure. I just know that it was worth it. Even on her deathbed, on my mother's deathbed, I was there for her last breath. I took her to treatment every day of her 6 months of her life. And even before that, I spent time with her. On Mother's Day, I would run, before I go to church, I would run her Mother's Day dress, and sometimes she would come with me, and sometimes she wouldn't. And so I have great memories of my mother, and I value that. As well as I've had some tough times and tough experiences with her in my childhood. And so there you have it. So that's why I want you to know that you, if you have been wounded by your mother, you can find a place of forgiveness. And I realize as a mother of 5 that my tragedies in my life and my experiences and traumas, I have caused trauma to my children, in the way that maybe I parented, or the way that I'm very isolated. I can live alone. I used to always move way out to the suburbs, away from everybody. Fear of things that's bad gonna happen. Fear of getting hurt. And we all know that love can cause hurt. Love can cause pain. Love can cause disappointment. And so I kind of isolated, get away, and sometimes I watch some of my children do the same thing, because not wanting to be pain, hurt, and not wanting to experience, drama and tragic. Because I have love for my family that I grew up with. My love family. Whether we were blood or not, we loved each other. I love those kids. We had good times. We had memories. They used to fight. I never liked fighting, honey. But some of the kids used to fight. I'd go in the house. Because I didn't have fighting in my heart. I was like my mother. My mother would go in the house. Tell them I ain't coming back outside. I remember her being in some fight with somebody, and she went on in the house. She just had this heart for laughter and hugging. She was very affectionate, and I summed that up too. She gave out what she wanted in return, even when she didn't get it. So I noticed that she had unconditional love. Her bad habits, of course, the alcoholism, gave her strength to look the other way. It helped her not to face her demons. It helped her not to face her fears. I'm just going to get me a drink and I'll be done with it, which caused a lot of pain in our life. If you have a wounded mother, if you have been wounded by your mother, find a place where you can forgive. There are many positive things about my mother, and I focus on them. But I also focus on the pain. When I was writing this book, the publishers came back and said, do you have anything good in the story? Because it was just a book of sadness. Even sometimes when people are reading it, or they'll get it and they're like, oh, I can't read it. They just feel sad. He pulled a gun on you? Yes. I got away, though. I always feel like I got away. And I have, through all the trauma, I went through many therapists, many healings. I went through deliverance and spirituality. I find ways to talk about it. I found ways to recover. And I also thank my love family, people that love me, my husband that loves me, friends that love me unconditionally, my children that love me. That has made a difference in overcoming circumstances, because we can't stay stuck in any place. We have to work through every place. So even though it seems like there there's no good. So the publishers came and they said, Sheila, are these people still alive? I said, yeah. Well, we can't publish until, even though I changed the names, so you couldn't publish, you couldn't, because for one thing, we did go to court, but my mother pulled us to the side and said, please don't tell, because if you tell, they're going to put me in jail. I was so mad that day. Because number one, you made me stand in front of the court and lie. And number two, I wanted to tell because I wanted justice. But we were so humbled by our mother. We had fear for her. We had respect for her. And we didn't want her to go to jail. But she was not being honest. She was covering for him. And so we lived through that ordeal. And that was very frustrating too. Because it was only right. If you do the crime, do the time. Unless God has mercy on your soul, which he has on most of us. So I'm going to share a little bit about that. And I want you to really consider tonight how you feel about maybe some of the women that you told or some of the experience that you've had. I've had women to tell me that they have experienced sexual abuse at the hands of women. And my focus tonight is healing the hurt woman tonight. I've always had compassion for women. Sometimes they think they're dominating you or overshadowing you or stronger than you, but I can see the pain of the behavior patterns of sometimes women are very mean or they're very competitive. All those are issues that have been unresolved, or they say things that are cruel, issues that have not been resolved. And it doesn't, to humble yourself, it never meant that you're not afraid. We still stand for the right things. So get your copy of Why Should I Be Ashamed so you can read it for yourself and you can flow through the story. So tonight I'm going to share with you chapter 6, New Year's Eve. So New Year's Eve was party night in Chicago. Everybody, we would be so happy, everybody's getting their drink on, the dance on. In the city of Chicago, you hear guns shooting, firecrackers, and just the life. The kids would come over and dance. I remember Lil Thurman, he would come over and he would dance, and we would dance, and Valerie, we would dance, all of the kids, we would just have a great time in the midst of the grown-ups. We would make chain and we would dance, and then sometimes Mama, they would plan to go out. And so here we go. Mama was still beautiful when she wanted to get dolled up. She could. She had a slim waistline to go with that tight-fitted skirt she wore. Her legs were shapely and looked great with her frame. She wore pointed-toe high-heel shoes, and she looked great. She was on her way to the annual New Year's Eve party. Women wore shiny and sparkling hats that night, and we knew we would hear the horns honking and bullets shooting from the celebratory guns. All of the adults looked forward to having big fun on that night as they looked to a new year and a new future. It meant forgetting the past, hoping for something new, while the adults partied and welcome in a new year. Mama left us in the care of those immoral vultures, many whom were half-grown perverts. So we were 12 and 13, and these kids was 18, 19, older than me. They waited for us to fall asleep, only to wake up in the middle of the night to take advantage of us. There was always watching and waiting. They were always watching and waiting for an opportunity to misuse, and we were warned with a stern, you better not tell. I remember some of the crazy things they would do. They would take a towel and twist it around your neck really, really tight until you pass out. And then that was the game. Then you would jump, and flicker. I was too scary for that. And people be like, my turn, and they would just take it until you pass out. This is the games they play. And then you would kick and have like a seizure. It was just normal fun. And I remember sometimes they would put us in a circle and throw me in, and then throw the kids in and make us fight. And I didn't even want to fight. We didn't even have a reason to fight. But the older ones wanted to see it. And that's some of the things that would happen while our mothers were out on the town. Between the shame and the shock, we smothered our emotion and pretended as if nothing happened to us. I remember crying for hours. Like one of those boys would hit you so hard in your arm, and we would just cry. I was going to cry until my mother came home, and I just wouldn't stop crying. I never told my mother what really went on while she went out doing the New Year's Eve celebration. That's another thing we had in common, keeping secrets. We subconsciously believed that those secrets would protect us. And like my mother, I was beautiful on the outside, but on the inside, I was hiding a life of private pain and stories that had never been told until now. Mama was a stay-at-home mother and didn't work besides taking care of us. Not in a traditional way, because Laos did not work either. I couldn't recall him ever being able to hold down a job. Once he made an attempt as a construction work, but quit after a half a day. It was like the saying, a jealous man can't work. Neither can a raging man. He and Mama spent most of their times watching television, tucked away in their bedroom. That is until the first of the month, when Mama's welfare check arrived. Laos was anxious, always anxious around that time of the month, and hunted the mailman down. I remember him going down. Did the mailman run? Did the mailman run? And I mean, you would think he had worked for this check, and it was a county welfare check. And he would dress all up, take his portion, and ask us what we want. We say a banana. Somebody will say cereal. They get they call it jitney car, but we call them. What we call those cars today? The cabs. Ubers. Now they call them Ubers. And they would Uber around town because they didn't have a car. Laos was anxious around this time of month and hunted the mailman down. It was as if a paycheck was coming to pay him for being locked up in the bedroom all month long. But things had gotten progressively worse, and Laos now even controlled Mama's food stamp and cash benefit. Mama submissively handed over her county benefits to Laos every month on one condition, that she had her Budweiser. She loved to have her drink. Every month, Laos' mother demanded that he let Mama control her own money in hopes that he'd listen to her and hand over Mama's welfare check. But that never happened. I remember being a little girl, they would go to Jewtown in Chicago. And his mother, she had a car, and she would work so hard. She'd work for a company all week long, Monday through Friday. And her husband worked. And she loved my mother. On the weekends, they would go to Jewtown, get a Jewtown Polar Sausage, look around, just get out the house, and we just running upstairs and downstairs. I don't even know if they asked, would anybody babysit us? We just showed up and they went on, and then they come back a couple hours later. And I remember mother would always try, give that girl her check, and my mama would sit there sad, and he'd say, it's my check. It was, can you just imagine? These things go on in some communities in hopes that he listened to her over the welfare check. As we've been told over and over again, a man will do only what a woman allows him to do in that case. Laos wasn't stopping anytime soon. Every month, he'd get his portion, and, that's how we lived. In the first month, The first of the month started out pretty much the same every month. Mama's check came, her and Laos jumped into the cab, headed to the grocery store. First, Laos asked each of us what we wanted from the grocery stores if he were going to make the purchase out of his own stash. And whatever we got, we should be grateful for. He made it clear that it was a monthly treat, and we had better be thankful for what he was doing for us. He was also trying to distract us and make us forget about all the ugly things we had experienced all month long. Like maybe my mother may have gotten beaten that month or something, and it was just a lot of tragic things oftentimes. The first of the month was, and you know, children usually they can have a tragic night, and then tomorrow they can get up and act as if nothing happened. Mama got 2 black eyes and a big lip. She ain't saying nothing, we ain't saying nothing. We couldn't do anything. We were innocent. And when Laos and Mama had a few dollars, it was their turn to buy the Friday night drinks. We went to Nana's house to get the party started. While the adults were focusing on their drinking and music, the older, unattended teenagers were focused on their sexual plans for us younger kids and what they would do to us. Once the drinking started, the adults elevated into a world of their own, and you know, back then they would tell, get out of grown folks' business, go in there, go upstairs. They wanted to separate the children from the adults. While the grown folks were talking, the language was hyper-political or hypersexual, not a conversation for children. But as usual, these conversations always escalated into hard feelings, which manifested into anger that inevitably filled the air. Cuss words and things that you shouldn't say and that we shouldn't hear. Laos had taken control of Mama's welfare check for several months, but somehow she had gotten the strength to walk away from it all. I remember my mother saying, "You're gonna reap what you sow." Oh, and she would say it so strong. And another saying, she always had these sayings. She always said, every dog have his day. And I guess that was what she was trying to say about the abuse. That was as much fight as she could muster up, was every dog. It was like his day was coming. There would be a day of reckoning for her, that she wasn't gonna, I don't know who was gonna take care of it, but she believed that it was gonna be done. The controlling behavior had gone on for too far long, and one day when Lost got drunk and fell asleep, Mama decided to get us out of there. She picked his pockets for her own money, told us to hurry up and get dressed. I can't remember how we got downtown to the Greyhound bus station so fast. We were just glad that Mama was free of Laos, and we were finally free of him too. We were so happy to be on our way to Detroit. If we could hear Martin Luther King Jr. saying to us, "Free at last, thank God Almighty, we're free at last." When we made it to Detroit, we had such a sense of peace. I can't explain the sense of relief we encountered. We skipped and hopped for the first time in ages. Oh, what joy. As we were walking and I seen a pair of black patent leather shoes in the display window in town. I wanted them shoes so badly. My mother, and you know, she was a single parent. I think we were living at a shelter, but we used to have to walk from the shelter to the restaurant to eat, and I seen those shoes in the window. My mother bought them for me, brand new, right out of the display window. It had been a long time since I had gotten something new. I don't recall the reaction of our family in Detroit or Mama even consulting with them. We stayed at the shelter for women and children for a couple of days, and then they made us go to the Grand River Hotel. The next thing I knew, I was awaking out of what seemed like a dream. We were on our way back to Chicago. Laos had found Mother, and to our dismay, she had given in to his tactics. Mama had fallen for the false promises again. Mama had been talking to Laos on the phone for this to happen. Maybe she never stopped talking to him at all. And in our oblivion and excitement, we didn't know the difference. We were all so excited about being away from loss that we never imagined Mama would take him back. We're not happy. We were not happy. But there was nothing we could do. It didn't take Loss long to return to his abusive way. In fact, it was immediate. We went to school, and the next day when we returned home, we found Mama beaten once again. She looked like Donald Duck to me in profile. Her lips were swollen. She had 2 black eyes. She had lumps all over her head. Her head was shaking. I remember going to the doctor, and for some reason there was a storefront doctor's clinic down there, and I went with her. And we went to the doctor, and my mother told the doctors that a whole lot of boys beat her up. And the doctor said, Miss Gwen, didn't a lot of boys beat you up? But she didn't say one word. And she went back in the house. And for some reason, I don't know how Nana came to the house, and she told Laos to take my mother to the hospital because she had like a nervous breakdown. They took her to the hospital. She stayed a couple of days. Mama had been beaten so badly that she suffered enormous trauma from the beating. She had a nervous breakdown and was admitted to the hospital. If there was a teeny morsel of affection for Laos after that day, it was completely gone. He had no compassion for our mother. I seen my mother beaten as if she were not even human. So that was there was a lot of trauma for a child. And I want those of you that have experienced this or are experiencing this, I want you to make sure that you get repaired, that you get some healing. And I wanted to say this, if you can admit you love a person, even when it seems you are foolish, it's okay for you to love all those people in the story. I even loved Laos at the time. He was our hero. He was our father. I loved him at a time, even though we didn't have much. I loved my mother. But then there's so much trauma that he changed that love, and it became hate, and it became very confusing, and it took forgiveness to even know where to put it. And so you kind of compartmentalize, I loved you as a child when you did the right thing, but then you destroyed something and ended it. So my question is, how do you love someone unconditionally? I would say that you have to work through it. You have to work through it in hard times and unfavorable times. And that's in any relationship. You work through it when you don't have understanding, but you have to communicate. You don't get to hold on to things and say, oh, it's just my feelings. And I realize that some relationships may never be restored, may never be recovered. And that's the only time that I really want to talk out things if we're trying to restore a relationship or recover a relationship or heal a relationship. How do you love someone unconditionally? Love has ups and downs, you know, especially when you have a lot of dysfunction. Also, you have to come to a place of mutual respect. So there was periods in my life that I took some time off of the relationship with my mother. I had to back away, and there's been times when I had to back away from relationship with loved ones. I had to back away because it became painful. When it's a constant infliction of pain on me, I had to remove myself in order so I can recover and I can heal and I can become a better person. You can become a better person today. You can get through these issues. You can, and you don't have to be in torment. You don't have to be in torture. You don't have to constantly, the psychology of hurt people. You don't have to constantly hurt people. Heal people, forgive people. So we can allow the Lord to heal our hearts so we can recover, and we extend grace. So I extend grace to my mother, and I didn't wait for her deathbed. We went to church together. She used to love to go to Walmart. I'd go to Walmarts with her, and when I found out that she was getting ready to pass over. I went to the doctor with her. She come to my home with me, and me and my children, like I said, I was there when she took her last breath, and I loved her, and I remember that she had love for me, and I remember some of the things she used to say. Sheila don't like whoopings. I didn't like whoopings, so I tried to make sure that she didn't see me doing something bad. And she always told me that I was beautiful, and she told me that I was her pretty baby. And even if your parent didn't, I know sometimes when you have parents that are very hurting, they can say some harsh things. She said some harsh and cruel things also. And I had to know that I come to this conclusion. Those was her problems, not mine. And that's what we have to do in relationship. You have to let other people own their issues. They're their problems, not ours. Thank you so much for listening tonight. Please share and like. Please get your copy. I sold a book today. Yes, I did. Please get your copy of this book. Why should I be ashamed? Tell somebody about this book. If you would like to do a book club, let me know. We can do a book club viral. We can come together and sit and talk. Do you have any questions for me tonight? I would love to answer. I had great feedback on last week. So many had lots to say. Thank you. Hi, Joanne, Yvonne. Yes, my cousin Yvonne. I remember growing up with Yvonne, and Yvonne took us to church. I had great experiences in Detroit and Highland Park, and we were kids, but we did not have physical fights. We didn't have sexual abuses not in Curtis Baker's house. And so I thank you for watching tonight. Thank you, Angela. Amber, do you all have any questions? Nanette? I am staying strong. Yvonne, you remember my mother and your mother. They were something else together. That's a whole nother private story. But thank you all so much. Would you please like and share? Would you please make sure you purchase a copy of my book, and maybe you can even read along with me. We do this every week, and our endeavor is to change the perspective, change the trajectory of your life and your pathologies, break cycles, break the silence. I know there's a lot of things going on in our world today, but let's not overlook our children. And when you find out that they have been abused, make sure you get them some therapy. Make sure you tell them, baby, it wasn't your fault. And sometimes my mother would just have these outbursts, and she said, baby, I'm so sorry what I let that man do to my kids. She said, and that brought healing. And even he apologized in his own way. And all those things, apologies, forgiveness, but please be open and talk about it. Don't allow it to just go on, because you see the numbers. You see the numbers that when you do not deal with it, it can become tragic in the children's future. Their value systems change, their work change. And so I want you to, and I know strong women. I know Miss Joanne, she's told me her story, and plenty of people have told me their story, and just the strength to see them journey through life as soldiers and with the victory and feeling good and yet wanting to love, yet reaching for love, and yet you are lovable. And no matter what your story is, we all have a story. We all have a story. No matter what your story is, you are worthy. You're worthy of love. You're worthy of peace. You're worthy of joy, and you're worthy of happiness. And thank you once again for listening. I love to have this combo with you. Send me, who else is on here? Oh, I see Evangelist, Brother Chico, Angela. I love you too, and Angel. I see Jaswana, Becky. These stories are for the glory of God, and I know We are in a time, hi David, hi DeWitt, we're Amy. We're in a time where there's lots of things going on, lots of things going on. But this particular issue has not ever been addressed, just like many. And I just want to say to you, let's see about our children. Let's see about our hurting past so we can heal. And let's never be ashamed of what we've been through and the things that we've gotten over. Let's address them head on with truth. And I want to let you know that there is a recovery. And thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the likes. Peace. Keep dancing.